Welcome to Golden Blue, everybody, home of the college football fan. And don't forget about the checklist. Hat check, sunglasses check, Pepsi check, notes check, sources check, and thick skin is a check. And don't forget to sing gear to represent your team and yourself in my background. Send it to P.O. Box 360, Liberty, South Carolina, 29657, and get yourself a shout out. On to the next video. In case you're wondering, these are the teams that we don't have represented for the mini helmets. As you can see, we actually have quite a few big brands that's not represented here at Golden Blue. So get your team represented here on Golden Blue. Hey, you already know what time it is, so might as well sit down, brace yourself, and buckle up because you are entering the speculation zone. Finally, some good news for West Virginia. We had to trudge through a terrible football season last year, going 5-7, which was the same record in Neal Brown's first year at West Virginia, which he had a lot of excuses in his first year. The cupboard was bare. But last year, no excuses. We actually brought in some talent on the offense, and the offense was decent, but our defense was terrible. It was like Swiss cheese. There was holes all over the place. So it's just like bad news after bad news after bad news. When are we going to catch a break? And of course, basketball season wasn't bad. We had that stretch where we weren't looking good. West Virginia did make the big dance, had some good wins in the regular season, but we got bounced in the first round and lost to Maryland. So even that wasn't great. At least we made it to the big dance, but not a good way to end the season. So West Virginia fans are looking all over the place, trying to find some good news for West Virginia. Well, I'm here to tell you there is some good news for West Virginia. This comes from the voice of Motown. It says, just in, you won't believe the amount of money WVU's new director of athletics gave the university. Ren Baker makes massive donation to West Virginia. He goes on to say, West Virginia Director of Athletics Ren Baker has donated $100,000 to support the Mountaineer Athletic Club on WVU's Day of Giving. Very generous. 100% agree. So the article goes on to say this. According to the press release from West Virginia University, a record-breaking $18.1 million was donated and 8,200 gifts were made during the 24-hour online fundraising event. West Virginia University President Gordon Geese said the following of the Day of Giving. As we look ahead, we have a perfect opportunity to further transform the West Virginia University system to best meet the current and future need of our students, faculty, and staff, and to fulfill our land grant promise, Geese said. I am thankful for the support from our generous donors, which will help us chart our university's direction for years to come. This is a big deal. Whenever it was announced that NIL was going to be legalized in the NCAA, I was actually happy about it. I thought it was about time. But then come to find out there was no guardrails. So I was like, oh man, this is not good for West Virginia. Because it's basically whoever has the most money is going to get the best athlete. Because there's no guardrails to even the playing field. So it's very unfair. So West Virginia basically screwed. Well, this helps tremendously. $18.1 million. That's a lot. And it looks like that could pay off immediately. Chris Henry Jr. took to Twitter, I believe this was yesterday, it might have been today, but he says, I'm going to be in Morgantown tomorrow. I don't know if it was talking about today or tomorrow. I'd have to look at the date. Probably should have looked at it before I did this video, but today's been kind of hectic, so whatever you see in the tweet, that date, you know that it's the day after that. It's either today or tomorrow. Chris Henry Jr. is a highly sought-out recruit. He's actually the son of Chris Henry, who went to West Virginia. So at least West Virginia has that going for them. And we also saw his tweet where he said, blessed with prayer hands emoji. And I counted 16 teams, so I'm guessing this is the final 16 teams. Wisconsin, Penn State, Michigan State, Miami Hurricanes, Texas A&M, West Virginia, Kentucky, Cincinnati, UConn, Purdue, Marshall, Boston College, Grambling State, Syracuse, UMass, and USF. So we do have some competition, but I think West Virginia is capable of beating those brands, especially with these generous donations. Maybe that's the tipping point. Because if you think about it, now there's really zero excuses for Neal Brown to not do well this next coming season. I think the offense is going to be pretty good because we're going back to the spread offense, run first, pass later. I think Garrett Green and Nico Markio will be able to run that effectively. It's our defense that I'm concerned. Listen, what I would do with this NIL money, besides trying to get Chris Henry Jr., is I would fire Jordan Leslie and try to bring in a competent defensive coordinator. I'm talking about Tony Gibson from NC State. If the money was right, I do think that Tony Gibson would be willing to come back to West Virginia, especially if we actually could top the salary that NC State is giving him. I think he would come back to West Virginia. So there's a lot of things that West Virginia could do with this NIL money. It could go to facilities like you talked about, faculty, of course, which is coaching staff, and of course the student athletes. Does this help West Virginia come up a few spots in the recruiting class rankings? or even the transfer portal rankings. Can West Virginia go out and get a great transfer through the transfer portal, which they did last year with JT Daniels because we were able to land Graham Harrell with offensive coordinator. Turns out Neal Brown didn't even know how to use him. So that's the only downside to this. Even if West Virginia can get some good recruits through the transfer portal or through the recruiting process, can Neal Brown actually use the recruits or the transfers in the right way to where West Virginia can have actual success? By the way, this will be a Get It Gang video idea. If you don't know what the Get It Gang is, it's basically a name that I came up with for a group of people that leave video ideas in the comment section of my videos. So if you think that you have a good video idea, leave it in the comment section of this video, and I just might use it on my next video. The first one is from Kuz's Corner, a fellow West Virginia YouTuber. If you haven't checked out his channel, go check it out. He says, Day of Giving wasn't related to NIL. Okay, so I'm hearing something different from Kuz's Corner. It was money for the university as a whole. It's totally separate from NIL. The MAC did get some money, but most of it went towards academic stuff. So that could be correct, but even if it is separate from the NIL, they can use some of it for the NIL, as long as they split it down the middle, both for women's and men's athletics. Whenever it's associated with the university, because of Title IX, they have to split that revenue equally between men's athletics and women's athletics. So even if that is the case, and it's not NIL related, that's still almost $10 million worth of revenue, and that would still help to get us a new defensive coordinator. We desperately need that. The second Get It Game video idea comment comes from William Conway. It says, good news for West Virginia recruiting and give H.C. Brown and H.C. Huggins some tools to work with. Now it's time for Brown and Huggins to work hard and fill the holes on their teams, especially within the transfer portal. I was a little concerned that Huggins is the only coach in the Big 12 that has 0 recruits for next year, but he does have 2 good transfers, Perez and his former teammate Silverino from Manhattan College. WVU needs to find guys like KSU did this season. Brown needs to address his defensive weaknesses. Nestor cannot do it alone. Brown cannot keep his offense on the field for as long as he would wish. By the way, Penn State is favored by 18.5, and the cheapest tickets are going for around $250 a piece. Talking about the first game for West Virginia in 2023. This is actually post-production Gold and Blue Dude, and it looks like West Virginia is actually putting those donations to good use already. According to the voice of Motown, it says former starting quarterback lands role on Neal Brown's staff. Morgantown, West Virginia. Moments ago, West Virginia head coach Neal Brown announced that he has hired former Mountaineers quarterback Rasheed Marshall as the new director of player relations. I think this is a good hire. I actually think it will help West Virginia attract bigger names. So that Day of Giving is already paying off. Hopefully we can make some good hires on the defensive side of the ball because we need a new defensive coordinator, among other things. But for right now, Rasheed Marshall is the new director of player relations. Let's look at the schedule real quick. First game at Penn State. Of course, we already know Penn State favored by 18.5. That line will probably go down just a little bit, but I still think that Penn State will be favored by more than 2 touchdowns. I'm considering that a loss. If West Virginia were somehow able to go on the road and beat Penn State, that would be a game changer for our entire season. I'm counting it as a loss. The next game is FCS Duquesne, easy win. Then we get Pitt at home, the Backyard Brawl. I will be at that game in person. This will be a win for West Virginia. Last year it was a road game. We should have won that game, but some questionable coaching decisions cost us the game. I think that's a win. Then we get Texas Tech at home. Very important game, and Texas Tech has had West Virginia's number, especially since Neal Brown was hired at West Virginia. That actually could be a loss, but I have it as 50-50. Then at TCU, TCU's taking a massive step backwards. That's going to be a win. Get a bye week before we're back on the road at Houston. That's also a winnable game. And Oklahoma State at home, I actually think that is a for sure win. Oklahoma State lost a lot to the transfer portal, and it's in Morgantown. Then at UCF, that could be a loss. You never know. BYU at home, that's a coin flip, but it being in Morgantown, that helps West Virginia. At Oklahoma, that's a loss. I'm counting it as a loss. Cincinnati at home, I think that's a win. And then at Baylor, I think Baylor will be much improved. There is no reason why West Virginia can't go at least 7-5 to 9-3 in 2023. If we go anything less than 7-5, then Brown needs to be gone. Even 7-5, I'm not happy with. Golden Blue Dude wants 8-4. For me, 8-4, and that's what keeps his job. But I'm not the one that has the last say. So I think West Virginia will decide that if he goes at least 7-5, he will keep his job. I won't be happy about it, but there's nothing I can do about it. But this record-setting day for donations for West Virginia University, that's going to help tremendously. I wish they would use the money allotted to the football side of things to get rid of Jordan Leslie and bring in Tony Gibson, because I am sick of this. The defense will not be better, but hopefully our offense will be good enough to where we can pick up more wins. So y'all in the comment section, how much do you think that this day of giving is going to help West Virginia football? Number 2, what do you think the record of West Virginia needs to be for Neal Brown to keep his job? And number 3, do you think West Virginia will be able to be competitive with the bigger brands? And I'm not talking about like Alabama, Texas, the biggest brands, but like the bigger brands comparable to West Virginia. I think this is a good sign as far as the support that the fans will give, especially if we start winning. If we keep losing, I don't think this support's going to stay the way it is. So we need to be careful about that. That's all I got for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.